Do you have an oil leak on your 2013 Honda CRV 2.4 liter K24Z7 engine? Does it look like it's coming from the oil pan? But it's not. Well, this is the video for you. Most of the time, that leak is coming from the oil filter housing, and that's an easy fix we can take on. This video assumes that you are comfortable with the basics of doing an oil change. Let's get the CRV on ramps and chalk those rear wheels for safety. Things are gonna get messy, so let's put some cardboard and a drip tray if you've got it. Don't get third-degree burns on this DIY. Make sure that the engine isn't too hot for you to work on. Touch it to ensure that it's lukewarm, or cold is actually best. In order to do this job, we're going to need to drop the oil. So one of the things we're going to do is remove the oil cap. This will also help it cool off just a little faster. Now get your oil catch basin ready because we're going to drop the oil. I know that there's a group of people who watch my videos that just want the specs and the tools needed to do the job. So here you go. I've compiled a nice little list for you. I'll also put it in the description of the video. It's important that you don't go with a cheap gasket here. Imperfections of the gasket can cause a bad seal and an eventual oil leak. It could even cause a cracked housing. I am going with the MAHLE GS33532 gasket kit. MAHLE may not be a dealer part, but it's a trusted name, and look, it's even made in Japan. Let's take off the Honda access cover or splash shield, which protects the oil filter and drain plug. The cover's part number is 74114T0A-A00. I'm giving you that part number because this plate is often missing and you may want to replace it. To remove this cover, use a JIS number 2 crosshead driver. But I'm going to carefully use my Phillips driver here. Now let's remove the splash shield, and oh boy, this problem has been getting worse, not better. Look at all that oil, and it seems fresh. Let's take a moment and examine the oil drip pattern to solidify that the gaskets have failed. Notice the mating points of the oil pan. They are dry, but the strap is wet, the bolts around the oil filter housing are wet, and everything around the oil filter is wet. This is a classic sign that the gaskets have failed on the oil filter housing. Okay, underneath the car, we're going to go ahead and loosen the oil filter. Still a bit warm. And we're going to catch it with something here. Catch basin. Turn counterclockwise. Some ratchets say off. Some of you may have noticed that I pre-loosened this for the video. Yours may be much tighter. Allowing the oil to drip out may take a bit, so this is a great time to go ahead and take a break. Or hey, go pick up that brake clean. We're going to need it to clean up the mess from the oil leak. We're going to go ahead and put this bolt back on. You don't have to put the crush washer on. You just got to get this guy on here. Or else it's going to keep spitting oil at you. And that can get pretty annoying. Here's a pro tip. Stuff the oil filter housing threaded stud with paper so it doesn't keep leaking oil in your face. And cut it down to a manageable length. We have this metal strap right here that needs to be removed. These are 14 millimeter. And this one right here is going to give you a lot of problems depending on if you live in the Rust Belt or not. It's pretty tough. You can hear that. You may want to put some penetrating spray and let it sit there, maybe heat this bolt up, but you got to be careful. There's a lot of stuff in the way there that you don't really want to put heat to if you don't have to. Okay guys, this 14 millimeter bolt right there is so tough to get out of the way. that every turn is pretty much using all of my strength. So I've gotten it pretty much halfway through, and hopefully we haven't destroyed the threads, and gotten it just to the point where I can get this strap and get it out of the way as far as possible. There are 3 bolts holding this housing. Here's 1, there's 2, and there's 3. And I believe those look like 12 millimeter, and they should only be tightened about 16 foot-pounds. You can easily go on this nice easy one here. You can see I loosened it already. And in order to get to these two, the 2 really hard ones, what you're gonna do is you're gonna go in from the wheel well. That's the trick. You gotta come in with your ratcheting side here, and from up here, you can see how you can easily reach it and have the appropriate leverage to get it off. You could even do this one here. And there you go. Nice and easy. And you could do the same thing from here with this one. It isn't that hard when you know where the openings are on a car. Look at all the leverage we have up here. Look at all the room we got up here. Lots of room for this wrench to move around. Now with that loose, we could undo the bolts by hand. Him down, and this should be loose. That bolt wouldn't come out all the way. I had to undo the housing. And now we've exposed the old gasket. You could tell it's old and hard and not pliable. That lets you know that this gasket's probably well overdue for replacement. Make sure to clean any gasket material off of the surface there. Any leftover could cause issues. Since we mentioned cleaning, let's focus our attention on the oil filter housing. You will notice the obvious channels as to where the gaskets are placed. This needs to be very clean. Any leftover gasket material could cause the housing to not seal well, and that could cause an oil leak. It could even cause the housing to crack when we tighten the fasteners. Be careful cleaning this too, as it is cast aluminum and some degreasers may damage it. You can try diluted Simple Green Aircraft or Simple Green Pro, or a standard high-rated dish soap with a nylon brush. I'm going to use my Sonic cleaner and some Simple Green. Take a moment to clean the engine side mating surface where the oil filter housing mates, and double check that oil pan seal for any other leaks. I wanted to do a thorough job, so I decided to remove the splash shield or the Honda part number 74110T0G A00 cover. You may not need to do this at all. But if you want to do it, because you also want to be thorough like me, it's pretty self-explanatory. I didn't show you how I took this off completely, so I'm not going to show you how to put it back on. It's super easy. There's just a bunch of snaps all along the plastic, except for 2 10mm bolts, which may give you trouble because they're rusted. And remember, you don't have to take this off to do this job. I wanted to clean it up real good in case the customer ever went to a shop and they told them you got an oil leak. Well, now it's kind of clean, and the mechanic can inspect for new oil leaks if they happen. Now we double, triple check our housing. We want to make sure that there's no debris in those grooves, no leftover gasket. We want to make sure that it's super clean in there. And while we're checking it, we also want to check for any deformations. Maybe even take a straight edge across that line right there and make sure that it is truly flat, that there is no light coming across it when you put the straight edge and the housing up against light. And you want to make sure that there are no cracks in the housing or deep scratches that would make you think that you need to replace it. Here's a tip. If you think you have to replace it, replace it. Don't even play with this. This is something that if it fails on you, you could lose all the oil in your engine and crack your engine. You don't want that. It's better to replace this and be safe. All right, gang. This is something that I do. I put a little bit of motor oil on these just so that the gaskets go on well. It's something that I do. I don't know if it's right, wrong, or indifferent. You know what? I feel better doing it. I use OW20, the same oil that's going to go in the engine, and this should help us install it nice and easy. In holding the camera with one hand, I found out that you can rest the oil filter housing on top of the oil pan ridge and get your first 12mm bolt ready. Remember to screw these bolts in by hand, making sure that the gaskets stay in place and you don't cross thread the fasteners. This is going to the engine, and if you cross thread it, it's going to be a really bad day. You are going to do your best to hand tighten these in a star pattern, and then you will take your torque wrench and a universal and extension as needed with the torque wrench and torque down the bolts in a star pattern again. And yes, we could have used a universal with extension and a 12mm socket in the beginning to try to remove the oil filter housing, but there was little clearance, and that means that we had little leverage to work with on the second and third bolt. It is far better to get more leverage with the wrenches we used coming in from the side of the car and from the top to ensure that the bolts stay intact. As you know, with time, those bolts actually get tighter than the original 16 foot-pounds. So that's my explanation as to why I did it that way. Let's get back to work. To meet the torque spec as close as the factory would do it, you need to tighten or torque each fastener first to 10 or 11 foot-pounds, and then go around again in a star pattern. And yes, I know, this thing makes an obvious triangle. No matter which way you do it, you end up doing a star pattern. Let's just say star pattern because the internet loves it. And if I don't say it, somebody will yell at me in the comments.
I may have gone a little over something.
And let's go ahead and tighten those up to 16 foot-pounds. And yes, you'll probably notice that I went a little bit over 16 foot-pounds on one of the bolts, but it's not too bad, is it?
Okay. We still have to get this strap on here. There it goes, it's right there. I'm just gonna snug this guy down. Alright, now we gotta do the other side. And that's the one that gave us a lot of trouble.
Time for the oil filter. Make sure you put a little oil on that oil filter gasket there. Little motor oil. And some people like to pre-fill it with oil. You can do that. You don't have to do that. We can go ahead and get this screwed on right now. Hand tight. Don't go crazy. If you got gorilla strength, no need to show it off here. All right, we've got our crush washer on our oil drain bolt. Our oil pan is still leaking a little bit. Let's go ahead and get him started in there.
And if my camera's shaky, I'm sorry. I've been holding this the whole time with my other hand.
And this guy here, just snug it up. I don't like going at the end. I like going in the middle of the ratchet, especially with a 3/8, and just push. And just don't push too hard. Snug is all you need. We're going to use the Mobile 1, and where they sold it to me, they only had these quarts. They didn't have the 5 quart, so we're just going to start pouring it in. Now that we've added the 4 quarts, we got to add the 0.2 portion of the 4.2 quarts that are needed for this vehicle, and that equals 6.4 fluid ounces. Now we just pour it in. All right, let's go ahead and close this up. So we went ahead and turned on the car after filling the oil and let it run for about 20 minutes or so, just to get up the temperature and a little extra. And now we're going to check for leaks. I know there isn't any because I checked here before I made this portion of the video, but let's check together here one more time. I don't know about you, but I don't see anything. Seeing the work we did, I don't see any leaks. No leaks on the filter. No leaks over here. Nothing. Everything's nice and dry.